Now that we can maneuver around our scene, I want to talk about manipulating game objects. There are a handful of tools in the scene view here that we have available to us, and as you begin to build video games and as you start learning more about Unity, certain questions will lead you to discovering these different tools. For example, if I wanted to turn my 3D environment into a 2D environment, how do I do that? There is literally a 2D toggle here that turns the game into a 2D tile map view. This is how 2D games are built. Alternatively, I can turn on and off my scene lighting using this toggle. There's another toggle to mute the audio, for example. There are various things that you would use these settings for, and if you hover over them, they tell you exactly what they do. The panel that I'm more interested in right now is this one right here that by default is detached here. I haven't found it to be a problem just sitting there, but if it bothers you, you could actually just dock it up here with everything else. But for the most part, I've grown to like it right here. But this right here is the core of manipulating Unity objects. Now, every game object in Unity has a similarity. And if you look at the objects you just created, can you identify the component that they all have? You'll notice that every game object in Unity has a transform component. It's the one component that exists on every game object. Every game object has a transform component that holds the position, rotation, and scale of that object. Select the object A, and you can either move your mouse to the scene view and hit the F key to focus on it. Alternatively, I could have double-clicked object A in the hierarchy and it would have zoomed in and focused on it. With this selected, I have what's called the QWERTY keys, which is Q, W, E, R, T, and Y. These keys map to these tool options. I want to go over each of these. This first one, if we hover it, says it's a view tool. If I left click, I can literally view this object. You can see here that's literally what we're doing. We're just panning around that object to view it. The next tool, which is really important, is the move tool. And this allows me to toggle. I can either select the tool or I can use the W key. All right, so Q is for the view, W is for the move. And it allows me to translate this object in the scene. I can translate it forwards and backwards, left and right, up and down. I can control it based on the axis that I want to modify. So here, if I want to move it or translate it on the y-axis, I can lift it up or down. Okay? The next thing here is if we look at the rotation or the E key, the rotate tool, this lets me rotate it along any axis that I choose. Now, because this is a sphere, it's going to be hard to see this actually happening. So let's select our next object. I can select it here in the scene, or I could select the capsule from the hierarchy. I'm going to rotate this object along the x-axis, and we can see here that it's being manipulated in real time in the game view. Rotating objects is going to be super important. You'll also see that we then have the next tool, which is the R key, or I can left click it here, and that is the scale tool. I can scale it in the up direction, the Z direction, the X direction, and if I do it in the middle, I can proportionately scale it by just left click and holding. Take the time to manipulate each of these objects in some fashion. Getting really familiar with this is going to be important. The next tool is this rec tool. The rec tool is for UI scaling. So when you get into building main menus and pause menus and other interfaces, you are going to use this tool, the rec tool, to actually scale those transform items down. But for the most part, you're going to use the move, the rotate, and the scale tool pretty religiously while you're working with Unity. So get some practice with it, and I'll see you in the next video.